Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here with you this evening, with all of you, during these uniquely auspicious days, at this very charged, moving and inspiring and loaded time of the year, upon which the Gemara, the Talmud says on the verse, Dirshu Hashem bihimatzo, kra'uhu biyoto karov. The prophet Yeshaya, Isaiah says in chapter 55, seek out God when He is present. Call out to Hashem when He is close. Asks the Talmud, Emas, in Tractate Rosh Hashanah, when do we say God is always present, God is always close, God is everything and everywhere? And the Talmud answers, Elu aseres yamim, Shebein Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim, during the 10 days from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. That's the time when the prophet says, seek out God when He is present, call out to Him when He is close, meaning there's a special intimacy, there's a special love, there's a special closeness, a very powerful energy during these days. Kabbalistic masters would call these days the time of Kiruv HaMa'or El HaNitzutz, the time when the great luminary, the great flame, becomes close to the spark. When a spark of a flame, when a little flame is close to a large bonfire, it becomes subsumed in the large flame. Every soul is a nitzutz, every soul is a divine spark, enclosed in this world, enclosed in the body, but it's a manifestation of God. And in these days is Kiruv HaMa'or, the great fire, the great source of energy comes close to the spark. So what happens to the spark? The spark becomes subsumed, the spark gravitates, the spark feels its source in a much more powerful way, and the closeness becomes much more manifested. And I want to thank very much Chazak and Emet and all of the other 7 or 8 organizations. I didn't remember them all, that give for giving me this privilege and the invitation to be with you here this evening, a few days before Yom Kippur, and exploring the possibility of turning Yom Kippur into a deeply transformative, inspiring, meaningful, and life-changing experience. They tell the anecdote about an American family, a non-Jewish American family, which was very proud of its ancestry, because they could trace their genealogy all the way back to the original pilgrims to these shores. They had ancestry that arrived here on the Mayflower in the 17th century, and they prided themselves with having that unique chain all the way to the genesis and the origin of these great United States of America before it became the United States of America. And they petitioned, they hired an author to write a history of the family generation after generation, but at some point during the research, they got stuck. They discovered that one of the grandparents, a man named Clarence Smith, has become a criminal. And not just a petty criminal, a capital criminal, and he was executed on the electric chair as a punishment. He actually received the death penalty on the electric chair. Now, how do you put that in the book? To omit it from the book, to delete his name from the book, is dishonest. To put in the story would be such a stain on the family. So in our community, unfortunately, what would we do? Unfortunately, some of our biographies have nothing to do with truth, nothing to do with accuracy, right? You put in what you want to put in, and you disregard the rest. But not everybody has a Yiddish cup. So they felt compelled to put in the story. But how? They don't want to embarrass the family. They don't want to stain on the family. And the writer said, listen, that's why you pay me the big bucks. I'm the expert. Let me take care of it. Everything will be depicted with full truth and accuracy. No lies, no cover-ups, no deceptions, no exaggerations. But it's still going to be the full truth. Okay? With bated breath, they wait for the day of publication. And when they receive the book, They look in the index of names, they come to the name Clarence Smith, they turn to the page, and this is what he wrote. Grandfather Clarence Smith occupied an important chair in a central governmental institution. He was tied to his position with the strongest of cords. And despite many attempts, he could not tear himself away from this important chair that he occupied. Till his last breath, he remained deeply connected to that chair in this great governmental institution. His death came as a sudden shock. I share this anecdote with you because tonight I want to reflect on that strange opening declaration that every single Jewish community, or almost every single Jewish community that I know in the world, makes as we usher in the holiest night and day of the year, Yom Kippur. I know the text varies in different machzorim and different prayer books, Ashkenazic texts, Sephardic texts, and many other texts, but the theme is identical. A court is assembled, a Bezdin is established. The Torah scrolls are removed from the Holy Ark. We have a Bezdin, a court of 3 people, holding the Torah. And the declaration is made. Al das hamokoim, v'al das hakol, v'yeshiva shel mailo, u'v'yeshiva shel mato, anu matirin lihitpalel im ha'avaryanim. With the consent of God and with the consent of the whole congregation, in the heavenly yeshiva, in the heavenly academy, and in the earthly academy, we hereby give permission to everybody to pray with the avaryanim, or the avaryanin in your machzor, to pray with the transgressors. What an interesting opening to this prayer. We don't do it all year. We don't do it every Shabbos or every Monday or every Thursday, every Wednesday and say, wait, you see that guy? That's Clarence Smith. He's a criminal. He's a transgressor. Whoever comes to shul, comes to shul. Yom Kippur, we don't start. We give permission for everybody to pray with the avaryanim, with the transgressors. Who are these transgressors? Who are these criminals? Who are these sinners who show up on Yom Kippur? Why on Yom Kippur do we decide to give permission to pray with them? And this is no small permission. We invoke the name of God. Al dat hamakom, v'al dat hakahal. We're doing this with the consent of God Almighty and with the consent of the whole community. Everybody has to be in on this. With the yeshiva in heaven and the yeshiva on earth. And we could pray with these avaryanim. And it's then that the community commences 3 times to say the Kol Nidrei, that unique legal declaration that we say on the opening of Yom Kippur when we nullify the possible vows, promises, pledges, and oaths that we might take upon ourselves from this Yom Kippur till the next Yom Kippur, so that we don't violate our vows and oaths. I ask you tonight, who are these avaryonim? Who are these transgressors? Who are they? I once told a story at a lecture, and somebody said, without names, who was it? So, I'm not going to ask you to give names for these transgressors. But I want to understand, who were the sages referring to? Avaryanim. There are 3 transgressors we're talking about. They existed both in history and they exist today. Historically, these transgressors related to, on one level, the Marranos, the Anusim in Spain. As you know, in the 13th and then primarily 14th and 15th century, the 14th and 15th century, the pressure for influential, wealthy, successful Jews in Spain to convert to Christianity was enormous. An inquisition was set up to compel the non-believers to convert to Catholicism, until at last, when Ferdinand and Isabella expelled all the Jews of the Kingdom of Spain on Tisha B'Av in 1492, that dark day when hundreds of thousands of Jews left the country they lived in for hundreds of years, during the golden era of the Jews in Spain, and were forced to go into exile because they didn't want to convert. But not everybody could resist the temptation. And many, many Jews, some put the number very, very high, in Spain, in Sfard, converted to Christianity. But many of them remained Jews in secret. We call them the Anusim, the forced ones. The Spanish called them the Marranos, which meant the pigs. And many of them practiced Judaism in secret or did not practice Judaism in secret. And some of them, when they got out of Spain and they came to communities where you could practice Judaism in public, they joined the synagogues, they joined the communities, they joined the shuls. And the people in shuls looked up. They said, this is not fair. We left Spain because we wouldn't abandon our faith. They chose materialism, comfort, prosperity over Judaism. Now they're going to become tzaddikim. Now they're going to become saints. Now that they're living in a more open and free society, they're going to sit in Mizrach, they're going to get shlishi, they're going to become the honorees at the dinner, they're going to take out the Sifrei Torah. That's not fear. In the hard times, they abandoned us. In the good times, they become our friends. You know those people, right? In the difficult times, they don't know you. Suddenly you win the lottery, or you sell your building on Madison Avenue, and everybody is your best friend. You know the story, yeah? Goldstein calls Rosenberg. He says, my dear buddy, Saturday morning we're going to play golf. 8 o'clock we're going to play golf. Rosenberg says, I'm not going to play golf Saturday morning. He says, where are you going? So I'm going to synagogue. You're going to synagogue? You never stepped your foot into synagogue your whole life. I know you for 60 years. You're going to synagogue? He says, I never stepped foot into synagogue till Cohen came to the synagogue. Once Cohen came to synagogue, I go every Shabbos. He says, really, why? He says, well, you know this Cohen? He came from Europe. He didn't have a dollar. Today he's worth $5 billion. And you know what he attributes it to? Saturday morning synagogue. Since Cohen comes to synagogue, I go there every Shabbos. I'm not going for golf. He says, come on. You have been an atheist your whole life. You're going to lie to me and tell me that you go Shabbos morning to synagogue to talk to God. You don't even believe in God. He says, no, you misunderstood me. Cohen goes to synagogue to talk to God. I go to synagogue to talk to Cohen. I just got it. Why do you guys go to Shul Shabbos morning? So these Jews said, I don't understand. You abandoned us. Now suddenly you became our friends. And even in Spain itself, there were Jews who were good Christians the whole year. On Yom Kippur, their conscience bothered them. Yom Kippur, they would join the secret synagogues. And other Jews didn't want him there. Tonight you're guilty, so you're coming here? Leave. But the rabbis believed otherwise. The rabbis said, tonight we have to make room for these avaryonim, for these transgressors. Why? Because ultimately they were forced to do something against their truest and deepest nature and self. Tonight is the night to open our hearts, to open the doors and say, they're also welcome. Even though a whole year they may have been alienated, but tonight their true self emerged. Tonight their true core emerged. A whole year they were playing a game. Tonight they're not playing a game. Tonight they came back to their origin. But my dear friends, this is not just a story of the 1400s. It's not just a story of the 1300s in Spain. It's a story that continues also in the 21st century in the United States of America, in Europe, and in the rest of the world. Thank God, in a different form, in a different manifestation, but a similar story. We have brothers and sisters who are embarrassed with their Jewishness. They don't want to show off their Jewishness. Nobody forces them to convert, thank God, but they force themselves to disguise themselves. You know that old story about Dr. Twersky, the psychiatrist, traveling on an airplane. And he looks like a real Hasidic Jew, square white beard, round black hat, long black coat. A lady, a Jewish lady, sitting near him, starts speaking to him in Yiddish. And she says, you're causing the anti-Semitism in the world. If you would dress normally, if you would look normally, if you would behave normally, if you would speak normally, they wouldn't hate us. But you have to stand out. Why? Why can't you just integrate into regular society? He looks at her, and in a perfect Oxford English, he says, excuse me, ma'am, I fail to comprehend the dialect of your verbiage. What language are you speaking in? She says, Yiddish. He says, oh, I'm so sorry. I am Amish. She says, oh, I thought you were Hasidic. He says, no, I am Amish. Long coat, square white beard, black hat. I'm Amish. She says, oh, I love the Amish. He says, why? She says, you're such a minority, but you maintain your heritage with so much dignity and so much pride. Kudos to you. It was now his turn to respond in Yiddish. He says, oi bich wollt gewen Amish, hast du mich lieb. Jetzt, dass ich bin a Yid, hast du mich feind. If I would have been Amish, you'd love me. Now that I'm one of yours, you're embarrassed by me. I want to bless you that you should be able to appreciate in your own people that which you appreciate in other people. Yes, in the 14th century in Spain, the Avaryonim converted to Catholicism. Today, thank God, we're living in freedom, relative freedom and prosperity. Jews are free the world over to practice their heritage, their faith, undisguised, with pride, with dignity. But many of us are still ashamed, are embarrassed. Some of us are embarrassed to wear a kippah. Some of us are embarrassed to speak about Yiddishkeit. Some are embarrassed sometimes to tell our neighbors or our friends, we started to keep Shabbos, we started to eat kosher, we started to go to shul. We put our children into a Jewish school. It's difficult for many of us. We want to hide. We want to be disguised. Jackie Mason, he's the guy who repeats most of my jokes. He says, when he does a show, or Jackie Mason show on Broadway, many years he did his comedy routines. And he would say, the Gentiles in the crowd, If you ask them, how was it? Say, it was unbelievable. You'll ask Jews, how was it? Say, it was too Jewish. Speaks too much about Jews, too many Jewish jokes, too many Jewish stereotypes. It was too Jewish. Many of us are afraid it's going to be too Jewish. It comes sometimes to Israel. It's so painful to watch. You have prime ministers, parliament members, professors, representatives of Israel, and they speak to the press. And they're embarrassed to say that the land is ours because God, the creator of the world, gave it to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their descendants forever, as is stated in the Bible hundreds of times. Christians believe in the Bible. Muslims believe in the Bible. Billions of people believe in the Bible, but we're embarrassed. We go into hiding. And this type of hiding creates confusion and ambivalence. The worst pain in the world is when you don't know who you are. So on Yom Kippur, we open up the prayers and we say, Yom Kippur, every Jew comes into Yom Kippur, comes to shul. Why he or she sometimes, not rationally, they know this is my home. An interesting experiment. If somebody goes Sunday and stands outside of a church, and a Christian comes out of the church, and you'll tell him, where are you coming from? He says, the church. You believe in the Lord? He says, of course. Why was I screaming hallelujah 3 hours if I don't believe in the Lord? Somebody Friday watches somebody come out of a mosque, a Muslim coming out of a mosque, and you say, you believe in Muhammad? Of course I believe in Muhammad. Why have I been fasting Ramadan for a month now, not eating for a month, if I don't believe in Muhammad? Why have I been kneeling now for 6 hours on carpets if I don't believe in Muhammad? And if you watch a Buddhist coming out of a Buddhist monastery and you say, you believe in Buddha? Of course I believe in Buddha. If not, why have I been fasting 49 years and doing transcendental meditation, becoming one with everything, all in one in all, nirvana, if I don't believe in Buddha? If you watch a Hindu coming out of a Hindu ashram and you say, you believe in karma? Of course I believe in karma. Why have I been tending that worm for the last 16 years, that worm in my garden, if I don't believe in karma? And if you watch the Mormon coming out, you believe in Joseph Smith? Of course I believe in Joseph Smith. It's what I teach my children every day. And now I challenge you, go on Yom Kippur to 5th Avenue in Manhattan, stand near Temple Emmanuel, and a Jew comes out Yom Kippur in the afternoon, and he goes to get a taxi, he takes off his kippah, you turn on, come to him and you say, where are you coming from? He says, I'm coming from there. You believe in God? Me? This Meshiggah? Evolution. The Big Bang. I'm a Harvard graduate. I'm not a fundamentalist, ultra-Orthodox fanatic nutjob. So, where are you coming from? Oh, I'm coming from the temple. Why were you in the temple? It's Yom Kippur. I thought you don't believe in God. Of course not. So why were you in the temple? Because it's Yom Kippur. But you don't believe. Yom Kippur, a Jew goes to the temple. What's so complicated about that? He thinks he's rational. Think about it. What is he telling you? What he's telling you is that Judaism is not only a religion, it's much deeper. A religion, if Judaism was a religion, if you're not religious, you're not Jewish. A Christian atheist is not a Christian. A Muslim atheist is not a Muslim. The definition of these religions is that you're religious, you have faith. But a Jew is a Jew is a Jew is a Jew. Even the most secular, unaffiliated Jew, assimilated Jew is still the same Jew. Not even that, even a Mishumad, a Jew converted, not only under duress like in Spain, not only under the threat that the church gave the Jewish people, the cross or the grave, the cross or your head. Even such a Jew remains a Jew on some level. If he betroths a woman, she needs a get, she needs a divorce, she needs a real get, it's a marriage. Because for a Jew, Judaism is the color of his or her soul. You can't change the color of your eyes. You can't change the color of your soul. Judaism is embedded in the very Jewish essence, in the DNA of a Jew. Whether he or she says, I believe, I don't believe, I practice, I don't practice, I may not be expressing who I am, I may not be living who I am, but this is my very identity. And on Yom Kippur, that relationship emerges. So the rabbis say, we say, Anu matirin litpalelim havaryanim. We open our hearts, we open our homes, we open our space to these so-called transgressors. But my friends, there's another category of avaryanim, another category of transgressors. These were the Jews in ancient times who embraced other faiths, other philosophies outside of Judaism, and they became what we would call heretics. They were transgressors in the fact that for them, the basic principles of Judaism seemed like a myth. But on Yom Kippur, their souls also felt that they want to reconnect. And many in the community might say, they don't have a place here. They're the ones who a whole year say Judaism doesn't mean anything. I don't need it. Religion is opium for the masses, to quote Karl Marx, who came from a Jewish family and was baptized as a child. It's opium for the masses. It's for the weak, it's for the frail, it's for the stupid, it's for the unintelligent. We have a new ethos, the God delusion, to quote one of the more popular books on atheism of recent years. Suddenly, Yom Kippur, you're coming to shul. We have no place for you. But friends, in modern days, in modern times, we have the same phenomenon with so many of us. But it expresses itself in so many different ways. We have people, including people who are sitting here right now, who are plagued with so many different questions, doubts, uncertainties. Some of us who have shared these questions when we were young, we never received answers. We never even received respect, and therefore we concluded that there are no answers. Some of us who have grown up not with philosophical questions, but with emotional questions. We have seen hypocrisy. We have seen abuse. We have seen lies. We have seen deception. And let's face it, when you see that coming from people who are supposed to represent the best and the finest of our culture and our religion, it's more destructive than anything else. When you see a sinner sinning, okay, that's what sinners do. But suddenly when people see corruption and hypocrisy coming from the top, it destroys them at their core. It eliminates all trust. Some of us have seen that. And as a result of that, we feel disconnected. We have so many questions, either intellectual or even more emotional. What about those of us who have experienced the pain of neglect or alienation and sometimes even abuse? And sometimes by people who are supposed to represent Torah, represent Judaism. They are supposed to be the role models of love and goodness and kindness. And the sense of despair and detachment from Judaism and everything that it represents becomes so profound. I will never forget what a young man once told me. He said, I cannot keep Shabbat. I would love to, but I can't. I said, what do you have against Shabbat? What did Shabbos do to you? What did Shabbat do to you? Even if you don't understand everything, but you can't deny the simple beauty of a Shabbos table. Kids sit with the parents. Nobody is on their phones. Nobody's texting. Nobody's WhatsApping. Nobody's shopping on Amazon. Nobody's watching a movie or a Rabbi YY clip. They're sitting, they're eating chicken soup. They're arguing as good Jews do. They're singing, they're getting into a fight as good Jews do. But how could you deny the beauty of that? And he looked at me, he said, Rabbi Jacobson, I would love to be able to keep Shabbat. I can't. I didn't understand why. And then he told me, it's a painful story to repeat, but I want to repeat it because I want us to understand what some people go through. Right, that. If you could put your cell phone on vibrate, first of all, send her my regards, and put your cell phone on vibrate, please. It's important to know what some people go through so that we become a little less judgmental and a little more compassionate. And this is what this young man told me. And I'm deleting 90% of the details. He said every single Shabbos, every Friday night, the shul was empty because people daven and they go home, and there's nobody in the shul Friday night. Much later, sometimes people come, but everybody goes for a Shabbos meal. If you could put your cell phones on vibrate, please. I know it's a Jewish crowd and you're expecting a call from Trump, but if you could put your cell phone on vibrate or on airplane mode, we would appreciate it very, very much. If you could do it now, even though you're Jewish, if you could do it now, not later. And so, thank you. Friday night, the shul is empty. And every Friday night as a child, he was lured to remain in shul after everybody. And every Friday night, he was physically violated and molested for years. And he told me, he says, Rabbi Jacobson, for me, Shabbos represents the nightmare of self-destruction, the endless pain and trauma. It was because of Shabbos, because the shul was empty, because everybody was home, because it was quiet and peaceful. He says, when you say the word Shabbos, I'm traumatized. When you say the word shul, I'm traumatized. I can't walk into a shul and I can't celebrate Shabbos. I wish I could, but I can't. I don't know why people go through the journeys that they have to go through, but I do know that such a person has questions, not from a rational, mathematical point of view, but from the core of his being and his existence. And then there are people who experienced a lot of pain in life. They've experienced grief. They experience deep mental, psychological, and emotional challenges as a result of which they feel alienated from God. They have so many questions. They have so many complaints. They have so much anger. They have so much pain. They have so much trauma. But on Yom Kippur, the day when God's love emerges and every Jewish soul, consciously or unconsciously, more or less, feels the intimate, indestructible connection between a Jewish soul and the divine. Because every single soul is forever and ever connected with Hashem, and nothing in the world can completely sever the relationship or connection. Just like a mother and a child, even if a mother and a child have a complex relationship, there's nothing you can do to divorce your child or to divorce your mother. And a healthy, functional mother never stops loving a child, even if that child feels alienated from the mother. The relationship may be a powerful one, the relationship may be a subconscious one, but there's always a relationship. So on Yom Kippur, these souls stroll into shul physically or emotionally, and sometimes people in the community say, what? What are you doing here? You don't belong here. But the rabbi said otherwise. The rabbi said, before we start Yom Kippur, Al das hamakoim, v'al das hakol, ono matirin l'spalalim ha'avaryonim. God's bosom is large enough and deep enough to contain every aching heart, every aching soul, every pained human being. Judaism and God are not small, that they have to exclude people who have questions and people who have pain. The heart of Yiddishkeit, the bosom of God, the bosom of Torah is big enough to embrace every person in their totality. God says, come in with your anger, with your frustrations, with your uncertainties, with your difficulties, with your questions, with your tears. come in with your totality. I want you. You don't have to amputate a part of yourself to realize that you're part of me. I want you with your entire being, your entire soul, your entire consciousness. In my heart there is place for all of you, for the totality of you. I don't have to cut off any part of you. You don't have to cut off any part of you. Come in here in your fullness, because only then can one actually transcend those challenging components and choose their deepest meaning and their deepest values. But my dear friends, there's another type of avaryonim, another type of transgressor. We spoke of the Maranos, the Anusim, who disguised their Judaism. We spoke of the heretics, the philosophers in mind, or those alienated by emotional questions, by emotional pain. But there are other transgressors, other avaryonim. You know who those are? Those are the regular day-to-day people like me. I don't want to say like you, because I see you're a bunch of tzaddikim. Maybe the men's section. The regular day-to-day people who cut corners. You know, the people who, when they call from the doctor's office or from the lawyer's office, you have an appointment 3 o'clock, where are you? And you say, oh, FDR traffic, bumper to bumper. I'm already stuck an hour in traffic. Didn't leave my house yet. Hey, what's the big deal? Everybody lies. It's the day I come home stressed from work. And I hurl an insult on my innocent children. And I say, what do you want? I work so hard. But my kids don't have to be a punching bag for my stress just because I'm hungry. It's those days I'm busy and I'm occupied, or I'm angry about something, I'm overwhelmed, and my wife calls me in the afternoon just to say hello. 1 o'clock, you get the call. Your wife says, what are you doing? And men go crazy. And I heard a man once say, what am I doing? I'm lying on a hammock, drinking a pina colada, reading the Wall Street Journal, and having somebody scratch my back. That's what I'm doing. What am I? I'm working like a dog to pay for your credit card bills. That's what I'm doing. You tell them, your wife just wanted to connect. She just wanted to tell you that she cares about you. She just wanted to tell you that she can't bear the thought of being lonely without you. But yeah, she doesn't always know how to say it that way. So she's like, when are you coming home? Really what she means is, I can't wait till I see your beautiful face when you get home. She doesn't always speak that way. Am I right? No? Okay. So you hurl an insult on your wife. There's the little lies that some of us say, the moral corners that we cut, the people we embarrass, the texts that don't always say the truth. They don't look like big stuff. Every person in their own way. A little sin here, a little sin there. Some immorality here, some immorality there. This is the third category of avaryonim, of transgressors. And on Yom Kippur, of course, we show up to shul, but we tell ourselves, I don't belong here. Oh, suddenly, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Al-Chet, come on. Come on. We tell ourselves, what am I joking? What am I lying? I'm becoming a new person. I'm becoming a new person. I know who I am. Why are you staying? Why and Yankel is staying? Yankel and Shmedel is staying Shmedel. The Holy Reb Simcha Binim of Pshischa once said, he said, a strange thing. You finish Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur, you finish the last prayer, and some people are hungry, present company excluded, but some Jews where I'm from get hungry at the end of Yom Kippur. Yeah. So the Mariv after Yom Kippur is a fast Mariv. It's pretty fast, usually express. What's the first thing you say? You finish Ne'ilah, you finish Yom Kippur. L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. They blow the shofar. Day of Atonement came to an end. And we start, V'hu rachum yichaper avon. God forgives sins. And then we get to Shmona Esrei. V'slach lanu avinu ki chatanu. Mechol lanu malkeinu ki vashanu. Rabbi say, Ribono shel Olam, I didn't sin. How many sins can you do between Ne'ilah and Ma'ariv? If people wouldn't be in a rush, you can have a little gossip maybe. But everyone is so anxious, they go from Ne'ilah, they jump into Ma'ariv. No gossip, no slander. You went straight. What's lach lanu avinu ki chatanu? You didn't sin yet. Who sinned? We're such pessimists. V'hu rachum yichaper avon. And Reb Simcha ben Mabshuscha says, you know what the sin of those moments are? You know what the sin is? It's the sin of people who don't believe that God really forgave them. Yom Kippur finishes, I look in the mirror and I say, I'm still the same idiot. I'm still the same bum. I still have the same filth. That's a sin. The sin that I don't believe that God forgives. The sin that I believe, like Clarence Smith, that I'm stuck to the chair with the strongest of cords and I can't get out of it. You know, they tell a story. There was a fellow who was accused of murder. And the jury sat. And it was very obvious that the jury's verdict is going to be guilty. So it seemed. It was just, you just had that feel that the judge, the jury, everybody just felt this guy is a criminal, prison for life or death penalty for murder or whatever the penalty is. Horrible penalty for a horrible capital crime. The lawyer of the defendant gets up and he says, let's settle this once and for all. In 30 seconds, the door is going to open. And you know who's going to walk in? The victim. Because everything you produced, all the evidence, nobody showed a corpse. The corpse never showed up. They didn't find a corpse. You know who's going to walk in? The man you said he killed. The man you said my client murdered. He's going to walk in. And you will see how you accused an innocent man of a horrible crime he never committed. And everybody turned to the door. Everybody. With bated breath. There was anticipation in the courtroom. There was electricity in the room. You could cut the tension with a knife. Everybody, every member of the jury, and everyone sitting in the courtroom turned to the door. And they sat, mouths open, gasping, waiting. They waited 30 seconds. They waited a minute. They waited 3 minutes. Hayela de nanu. Nobody coming through that door. The lawyer got up and said, don't worry, nobody's coming. This was a trick. But let me show you something. Every one of the jury turned around to the door. You know why? You're not convinced that he murdered anybody. You see you're not convinced. You're ready to deem him guilty and you're not even convinced and you're ready to kill him. You all turn to the door. Wow, people were impressed. I'll find a trick. He's learned Gemara in his life. He went through Sanhedrin and Baba Basra and Makkos. Came verdict time. The judge comes, order in the court, takes the hammer, gives a clap. Guilty. Gasp. Lawyer says, Your Honor, Didn't I just make an extraordinary point? He said, almost. You see, when everyone looked to the door, I looked around the courtroom. Everybody looked to the door besides one person. Your defendant. He didn't look to the door because he knew nobody's coming through that door. Guilty. That's the sin, says Reb Simcha Binim. After Ne'ilah. You went through a whole Yom Kippur, but you say, I'm stuck. This is who I am. My marriage has to be lousy. My relationship with my children has to be lousy. My relationship with God has to be lousy. I will forever remain lazy, miserable, envious, bitter, resentful. I can't live a powerful, deep, meaningful, inspiring Jewish life filled with love, filled with awe, filled with Avos Hashem, Avos HaTorah, Yiras Hashem, Avat Yisrael. I'm tied up to the chair. Just for that you have to ask forgiveness. Ask forgiveness for the fact that you don't believe you were forgiven. One of the psalms we say throughout these days, including Yom Kippur, of course, is Psalm 130. Shir HaMa'alot Mima'amakim Kraticha Adonai. There is a line there. King David says, Ki imcha haslicha leman tivarei, which means you forgive so that you should be feared. God forgives leman tivarei, from the word yir'ah. He wants to be feared. Ask the commentators, doesn't make sense. You don't forgive in order to be feared. You forgive in order to be loved. When you forgive, you're not feared. When you don't forgive, you're feared. For example, let's say you take a job in somebody's office and somebody says, this boss, he doesn't forgive. So watch out. Watch out, be careful. But if somebody tells you this boss, he forgives everybody for everything. You could come as late as you want. You could miss as many days as you want. He forgives. You're not going to fear him. You may like him, but you're not going to fear him. You remember the teacher in school who was just a mushy, lovey-dovey teddy bear? Forgave everybody and everything. You didn't do homework? Okay. You failed? Okay. You're so cute. You don't fear him. You like him. You don't fear him. And then you have the disciplinarian, the militant teacher, you remember? Everybody is scared because he doesn't forgive. What does King David mean? Ki imcha atzlicha, you forgive. Leman tivarei, so you should be feared. By forgiving, you're not feared. So the Baal HaTanya, Schusa Yogan Aleinu, the Baal HaTanya gives the following explanation with a parable. And I'm going to apply, it's his parable, the Baal HaTanya's parable, I'm going to apply it to contemporary times. It's 2006. Some of you remember, some of you don't. It's 2006. The real estate market is booming. And you decide you want to make money. It's time to make a couple of bucks. And you take out a loan from a bank. Not a small loan. You take out a loan for $50 million. You're building condominiums in Manhattan, you're renovating them or building them, and you're selling them. You're going to make a profit of $70 million. Not bad for a Jewish kid like you, a dropout and an ADD. Not so bad. Maybe that's why. Comes 2008, Yizgadal v'Yizgadash, boom, the market crashes. Nobody's buying your condominiums. You're stuck with a crazy loan with crazy interest. You have to start paying next month. It's an insane catastrophe for your whole financial future. The manager of the bank schedules an appointment with you for Wednesday. And you walk into the manager's office. And he looks at you and he says, I don't care about what happened. We have to be paid every cent with interest. Your first payment is due next Tuesday. We're expecting $5.4 million for the first payment, and so every single month. You look at him, and you're like, ha 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 ha. You call your wife, you say, the man is a meshugana. He's nuts. You don't even begin to worry. You know why? There's nothing you can do. You put your private house on your wife's name. Right? They summon you to court. And you push off the court case. Ultimately, you hope the hearing is going to happen at the year 2033. And by then, either you'll die, the bank will die, the manager will die, the bank, whatever will happen. But you know how it is. Do you worry about it? You don't even worry about it. It's so beyond. It's so beyond. There's nothing you can do. But what happens if you walk into the bank manager? Bank manager looks at you and he says, I'm so sorry. We all have to bite the bullet. I know you were wiped out. We were also wiped out. I'm so sorry. Let's make this work. First, let's cut out all the interest. Forget the interest. Second, I'm cutting down 30% of the loan. Now tell me what you can do. Let's make this work. We're all biting the bullet. We're all taking a bullet. We're all losing. But let's make this work. Says the Balatanya, now you got to be afraid. Now you call your wife and you say, I have to pay. Now I have to pay. He's a mensch. He's working with me. I got to show up. I can't just run away. If God would come to the Jew and say, listen, I want everything with interest. Bye-bye. Have a good day. You know, if you're never good enough, you just give up. You know those parents who make you feel you're never good enough? Those fathers or mothers? You get a 95 on the test. Why didn't you get 100? You get 100. Why didn't you get 110? You made $1 million. Why didn't you make $2 million? I made $2 million. You just give up. It's impossible. I could never be enough. If God wants everything, it's fine. What do you want? I'm human. Ki'imcha aslicha. The Ribono Shel Olam, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to a Jew and says, I love you. I care for you. I cherish you. I want you to be successful. I want you to be happy. I want you to have the best year possible, physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, in this world, the next world. Let's make this work. I want this should work. Laman Tivarei. Now I feel accountable. Now I feel responsible. There is forgiveness. There's a lot of forgiveness. It's a whole other experience, a whole other reality. So there are 3 types of avaryonim that walk into Shul on Yom Kippur. And let's face it, I look at myself. I have all 3 in me. Some of us have all 3. There are those of us who suffer from shame, ambivalence, uncertainty, the first category. I'm ashamed of who I am. There's the other avaryonim, those of us who feel alienated because of anger, because of pain, or because of grief, or because of trauma, or because of questions, or because of doubt, or because of abuse, or because of hypocrisy. And then there are those of us who are avaryonim because we're weak. Because we're weak. We cut corners here, we cut corners there. We make mistakes, we sin, we transgress. And on Yom Kippur, the first thing the Rabbi said is, create space in your heart for yourself. Create space in your heart for all these parts of yourself. For the shame in you, and for the uncertainty in you, and for the mistakes in you. And create that same space for other people. Al das hamokam v'al das hakahal. B'yeshiva shel mailu, b'yeshiva shel mata. Anu matirim li'ispalim ha'avaryonim. Who are these avaryonim? Who are these transgressors? Transgressors. It's each person in their own way. But God says, my heart is big enough to contain this, and to contain this with love and with affection and with sensitivity. I think of this, and I remember a story of a Jew. Such an inspiring legacy. His name, Dr. Ludwig Gottman. Ludwig Gottman was a German Jew. He grew up in an Orthodox, traditional Torah-observant German family in Berlin. He became one of the leading brain surgeons in Germany, a brilliant doctor and an exceptional brain surgeon. In 1933, Hitler Yamach Shemoy becomes the Chancellor of Germany. In 1938 is Kristallnacht, November 38. In 1939, Ludwig Gottman flees his homeland. He flees, he runs from Germany, he escapes Germany, and he moves to Great Britain, to London. Due to his brilliant medical skills and prowess, he is invited to open up the first center for people with major spinal injuries. Dr. Gottman opens up the center in 1943 in the midst of the Second World War, and he begins working with patients, what we call today paraplegics. Paraplegics, those who are usually paralyzed from the waist and below. And Dr. Gottman sees there's a pattern. In those days, in the medical community, in hospitals and medical homes and centers, paraplegics were seen as hopeless victims. They were given as much medication as possible to relieve them from pain, and they were mostly left to die. There was no agenda, there was no vision, there was no long-term treatment for them. This was the common denominator with most of them due to the intensity and the power of the injuries, which left them paralyzed most of their body. Dr. Ludwig Gottman could not tolerate this approach. And he completely revolutionized the field. He began instructing the nurses, the doctors under his care, to take personal interest in every patient, to lower the medications and the sedation so they could be more conscious, to ask them about their lives, about their dreams, about their hopes, about their stories. He also realized the power of athleticism, of sports. He had the nurses, physicians and doctors, caretakers, do small physical activities with them. They were all bedridden, would lay in bed till they die. He forced them out of bed into wheelchairs, had them move those tiny movements that they could make. This caused tremendous pain to the patients who were being sedated and given medication just not to feel the pain. But now the medications were lowered. As a result, they felt their pain more acutely. They were also challenged to move even slightly, which caused them tremendous agony. There was crying, there was screaming. And the greatest pain Ludwig experienced were not from the patients. It was the criticism of the entire staff. They called him the murderer of the paraplegics, tormenting them, torturing them. But he saw something else. He saw a spark in them coming back to life. He saw their soul coming back to vitality. They were being challenged. They were being stimulated as people. Their minds were fully functioning. They were being asked questions. They were being asked to tell stories. He put nurses in wheelchairs to do competitive activities with them, realizing the redeeming power of competitive sports and athletics for many of these patients. There was a book and a film written about him and his work. It's called The Best of Men. It depicts a scene where one of the chief doctors in the hospital looks at him and says, "Dr. Gottman, who do you think these men are? Who do you think these people are? What are you doing with them?" And he says, "Who do I think they are? I think they are the best of men. I think they are the best of men." Slowly, he triumphed over the tremendous opposition as the results started to be noticeable. And a few years later, he introduced sports for the paraplegics. He turned it into a national competition and then an international competition. And in 1960, he introduced what came to be known today as Paralympics, where paraplegic patients and victims compete in athletic sports and competitions similar to the regular Olympics. And in the most recent one, 4,200 paraplegic patients joined from 16 different countries. You could see the smile on their faces, the vitality in their souls, the vibrancy in their hearts and minds, as so much of them comes back to life. In the last few decades, he transformed completely the perspective of the medical community, the scientific community, and the rest of humanity on these people. And his death in the 1980s or the 1980s, he had the nachas to see that type of transformation. All for one reason, because he saw them as the best of men and the best of women. Why and how did he have the courage to stand up single-handedly to the entire scientific community of his day? Perhaps he saw how Jews were treated in Nazi Germany. For the 6 years he lived under Hitler's tyranny, Jews were treated like paraplegic patients. No dignity, no humanity, no hope. Perhaps he grew up in a traditional Jewish family, a Torah saturated and observant family, and he knew the secret of Yiddishkeit and the secret of Yom Kippur. And that is, there is no such a thing that a person is hopeless. There is no such a thing that a person is just left to die physically, emotionally, psychologically, or spiritually. The essence of Yom Kippur is Al das hamokoim v'al das hakol onu matirin v'nislach l'chol adas b'nai Yisrael v'yomer Hashem shalachti kidvarecha v'chasoyim l'chayim toivim. Transformation, renewal, rejuvenation. But renewal and transformation does not mean that if somebody is a paraplegic, suddenly tomorrow they're running the marathon, the ordinary marathon. That is not their mission. What it means is that you grow according to your capacity, that you advance according to your prowess, that you make movements according to your capabilities. That growth is possible wherever you are and whoever you are, according to where you are today, not judging yourself according to the standards and dimensions and missions and journeys of other souls, of other people. Perhaps it was that great institution of Yom Kippur and so many other ideas in Judaism that inspired Ludwig Gottman to be able to look at these people with a completely different perspective, with the perspective of Ki'imcha Haslicha, Laman Tivarei. It's during these days and during this time of the year on Yom Kippur when I and you can look deeply into ourselves and realize that you are the best of men and you are the best of women, and that the potential is great, enormous, and infinite. And don't be afraid of the transgressor within you, because God's love and God's bosom is big enough, steep enough, deep enough, and pathetic enough to embrace you in your totality, if only you can embrace yourself in your totality and realize you need not fear any part of you. You need not cut off any part of you. You need not become disillusioned and alienated because there's certain experiences in you, certain voices in you, certain thoughts in you. On this day, God tells you, I love you, and I love you unconditionally, and I love you infinitely. I want you to be able to love yourself as much as I love you. And I want you to be able to experience yourself the way I experience you. And realize that wherever you are in life, take one step to advance yourself and your soul towards your truest destiny, your truest depth, your truest meaning, your truest purpose. Till we can declare at the end of Yom Kippur together. L'shana haba'ah b'Yerushalayim. Thank you very, very much, and a Gmar Chatima Tova.